Nature is one of the earliest and most prevalent influences in architecture throughout history. Many architects, such as Tadao Ando, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, and Frank Lloyd Wright, utilized natural influences in order to connect man with the natural world. Tadao Ando's buildings find the beauty and simplicity and connection to nature. Born in 1941, he continues to design today, 77 years later. His building, the Koshino House, was created in an early point of his career, 6 years after his first building, and is a great example of his approach to natural influence. Similar in Ando's philosophy of finding peace and connection to nature is the famous Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, who lived from 1886 to 1969. His building, the Farnsworth House, was created in his period of work after his emigration to the United States. It was during this time that Mies van der Rohe was interested in minimal frameworks as the new design of the modern age. Also interested in nature was Frank Lloyd Wright, who was alive from 1867 to 1959. Wright has many different periods and buildings in which he draws influence from nature. However, one of his most well-known is the Prairie style, where he created the notable Coonley House. In each of these buildings, these three architects took their own unique approach to drawing influence from nature in order to connect man to the natural world. Of the three architects, the one most influenced by the spirituality of nature is Tadao Ando. The Japanese architect draws from the influences of his culture, specifically regarding nature. After World War II, Japan's urbanization led to the loss of Japanese architecture's most crucial element, its connection to nature and the embracement of the natural world. Ando searched to return to his roots to restore this connection between architecture and nature that had been forgotten in the blight of modernization. With a connection to nature comes a deep sense of spirituality and therefore a sense of serenity. Ando believed that when one has a relationship with nature, they find soothing inner states of mind and generalized spirituality. One way in which Ando communicated connection to the natural world is through a unique sense of light. We can see this in his building, Koshino House, created between 1979 and 1981 and residing in Hyogo, Japan. Rather than using large windows to gain natural light, Ando utilizes a softer, more gentle light through the use of small openings that create focused beams of light to a small area of the room. Ando chooses to let light be a source of decoration in the home, leaving the smooth concrete walls completely bare. This use of light and shadow simultaneously conveys both a sense of complexity as well as simplicity. By using light in this unique way, Ando demonstrates that to him, light is not about providing illumination or brightness to a room. Instead, it obtains its own independent presence. This use of light as the only form of ornamentation in a bare room provokes the feeling of simplicity and oneness with the natural world. There are no distractions, only what comes from nature. The Koshino House not only uses light in connection to the natural world, but also its placement in the earth. This sunken building rests with parts of it buried in the sloped landscape. This makes it one with the earth, anchoring it to the land that surrounds it. The building was constructed so as not to disturb the trees that encompass it, which recalls a further sense of respect and harmony with the earth. The transition from grass to building feels seamless, with the sunken structure feeling like it belongs as a part of the land. The use of blank concrete walls and extremely minimal furniture further increases the sense of meditative tranquility within the building. It is this sense of peace with the surrounding land that leads to Tadao Ando's achieved goal of restoring the connection between man and nature in order to gain a sense of unity and spirituality. Also concerned with the spirituality of architecture was the legendary architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Mies van der Rohe also believed that the spirituality of architecture could enhance one's sense of the natural world. We can best see how he achieved spirituality through his connection with nature in the Farnsworth House. Created between 1945 and 1951, this structure stands in a meadow in Plano, Illinois. The Farnsworth House is striking in that there is very little to its design. Unlike the sturdy concrete walls of the Koshino House, Mies van der Rohe's building is constructed almost entirely out of glass, rendering it almost completely transparent. The glass walls leave little separation between life inside the building and that of the outside world. The building is raised above ground level, causing it to hover above the land. It is surrounded by tall trees, and the living area looks onto the Fox River. This house allows the inhabitant to experience the serenity and silence of nature by forcing one to surround oneself with it. The decorations of the house is the decoration of the changing leaves, the rain, the snow, etc. This house does the opposite of interrupt the natural world, as so many buildings do, by having the interior and exterior merge as one. If one were to live in this house, over time they'd feel as if they were part of the natural world, rather than just a spectator of it. While Ando and Mies van der Rohe incorporated nature through a spiritual sense, Frank Lloyd Wright took a different approach during his period in the Prairie style. Wright has a long history of incorporating nature into his designs during his career, the Prairie style being just one manifestation. Wright saw architecture as being dependent on the influence of nature, saying that nature furnished the materials for architectural motifs out of which the architectural forms as we know them today have been developed. Wright took his ideals about the importance of nature in architecture and applied them to the Prairie School, a style which evoked the spirit of the Prairie's sweeping landscape. One building that embodies the ideals of the Prairie style is the Coonley House. The Coonley House was built by Wright in 1908 and it rests in Riverside, Illinois. Wright exemplifies the theme of nature in this piece both conceptually, through drawing influence from the feel of the prairies, and literally through his use of natural elements such as water, plants, and natural materials. Wright decorates the exterior of the home with natural elements, such as the large reflective pool and a multitude of planters. The pool seamlessly flows into the terrace of the Coonley House, causing the building to seem like it is a part of the water. Wright continues to bring nature into his design through the use of natural materials, such as wood. Wright showcases the natural wood in the floors, walls, and ceiling of the living room. By doing so, he fills the room with warm, natural color, reminding the viewer of prairie landscapes. Wright also reminds viewers of prairie landscapes in the composition of the building. The exterior of the home is made up of flat and wide overhanging eaves that go beyond the stucco walls. This creates a very wide and horizontal feeling to the building. This is intentional as it references the flat expanse of the prairie. Wright also communicates the spirit of the prairies by keeping the interior free-flowing. This further exemplifies the vast simplicity of prairie landscapes. While each artist placed a deep importance on appreciating nature and incorporating it into architecture, they each had a unique way of approaching the subject. One thing that they all differed on was their approach to natural light as a way to connecting with nature. The greatest difference is between Mies van der Rohe and Ando, with Wright falling somewhere in between their two methods. Ando is very purposeful with how the light will decorate the space. It creates a quiet and cave-like space, where the light is gentle and soft. In stark contrast is Mies van der Rohe's use of glass walls to let in the greatest amount of natural light possible. Mies van der Rohe exhibits absolutely no control over the natural light, letting the amount of light in the interior be exactly the same as one would experience outside the building. Wright falls in the middle of the two. He controls the light by using a set of windows, but also he is focused on allowing a vast amount of natural light into the space by the use of ribbon windows along the entire wall of the living room. Wright does this so that the room will feel larger and more open, once again relating to the design of the prairies. However, he still wants the Coonley House to feel like a home, and therefore there needs to be some control over the amount of glass. When we further compare Wright with Mies van der Rohe and Ando, we can see that Wright was the most concerned of the three with creating a livable space. Mies van der Rohe, on the other hand, was the least. While Wright's home has many windows, there's still a great amount of privacy in the house when compared to the glass box that is the Farnsworth house. The Farnsworth house is far more about connecting to the outside world than it is about comfortable living. Due to the almost complete lack of privacy and the very minimalist furnishings, the Farnsworth house lacks the warmth and coziness of the Coonley house. However, of the three, Ando's Cochino house feels the coldest. The Cochino house's dim lighting and completely bare concrete walls relates the idea of a meditative simplicity, not comfort. The coolness of the Cochino house's vast empty spaces and very minimal furniture is a stark contrast to the soft carpets and warm feel of the Coonley house. Unlike Ando and Mies van der Rohe, Wright's use of nature feels far more forced in that he used natural elements that he had to place there, like the planters, wood, and pool. Mies van der Rohe and Ando used the surrounding land that pre-existed to relate to nature. Mies van der Rohe and Ando have very similar philosophies surrounding connecting man to nature, but their executions communicate very different feelings. Ando's Cochino house relates to the surrounding earth by sinking into it, rooting itself there. Its sturdy concrete walls make it an ingrained part of the land, like an extension on the ground. On the other hand, Mies van der Rohe's Farnsworth house is raised above the earth. Its hovering stance and use of glass walls relates it not to the earth, but rather to the atmosphere. While each establishes itself as existing with nature, they do so in entirely opposite ways. Each of these three architects succeeded in creating architecture that restores the connection between man and the natural world. While Wright decided to do so using the spirit of the prairies as influence, Mies van der Rohe and Ando did so by creating simple spaces that utilize the surrounding area to the fullest extent. Tadao Ando's Cochino house relates occupants with the earth, while Ludwig Mies van der Rohe's Farnsworth house creates a connection between man and the atmosphere. Overall, I think that Mies van der Rohe's home best succeeds at creating connection between man and nature, and I think that has one of the stronger concepts. However, I like the Koscina house best in its simplicity and innovative use of light, where it creates a deep sense of tranquility and meditative connection with nature. Wright's home is the most different of the three because it values livability as much as nature, and therefore it does not push boundaries as much as the other two. That said, I think that each architect was successful in communicating the value of embracing and connecting to the natural world.